President Biden can stop the bloodshed in Gaza anytime he wants because Israel is a client state. Israel is not a U.S. ally, though you will frequently hear our political class call it one. Senators and congressmen and presidents commonly refer to Israel as our greatest or even most important ally, yet there are no treaties to that effect. The U.S. is obligated to defend any nation in NATO, Australia and New Zealand, Philippines, Japan, South Korea, among others, and those countries, in turn, are obligated to come to our defense as well. If the U.S. were to be attacked, Israel would be under no obligation to help. That's what an ally does. Allies do not typically attack American naval ships like the USS Liberty, something that happened during the Six-Day War in 1967. But hey, what are the lives of 34 American service members between friends? Israel is not an ally. It is a client state. What is a client state? A client state is any country that is controlled or influenced by another, larger, more powerful nation, or depends on a larger, more powerful nation for support and protection. Client states can also be referred to as satellite, vassal, or puppet states. Any nation that has a strong affiliation or reliance on another country is a client state. Israel is a client state of the U.S. This is not even controversial. The Israeli press refers to its status as a client state openly. Anyone who pays attention to international affairs knows this. And don't try to come at me in the comments with, more like the U.S. is a client state of Israel. Get out of here with that garbage. The adults are talking. How do we know that Israel is a client state? Aid spending is one big clue. The U.S. has spent more than $63 billion of American taxpayer money in security assistance for Israel in the last 20 years or so. The U.S. gives more military funding to Israel than all other countries combined, with massive bipartisan support. When you call something foreign aid, it conjures images of humanitarian relief. The money spent on Israeli security is not that. It's actually more like an IOU that says, good for $3.6 billion in arms from U.S. companies. That money is not meant to be spent on French Mirages or, heaven forbid, Russian MiGs. That money is channeled directly to the best, most expensive, high profit margin, all-American military hardware. The U.S. was willing to sell its top-of-the-line F-35 Joint Strike Fighter to Israel before any other countries could get in on it. So it's not like there's nothing in it for the U.S. Aid money for Israel is U.S. taxpayer money that Israel immediately gives to U.S. weapons manufacturers to prop up stock prices and dividends. Like a boomerang. In that sense, Israel is both a client state and a client of the military-industrial complex. Except we're the ones footing the bill. That's one reason why there's so much bipartisan support for Israel. It keeps stockholders happy. All the usual players, including Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, now RTX, Boeing, Colt, General Dynamics, are making money off the Gaza attack. Besides aid, what are some other clues about Israel's client state status? The Israeli Prime Minister doesn't get to weigh in on U.S. military strategy. However, on October 8, 2023, President Biden and Secretary of State Anthony Blinken had a powwow with Israel's war cabinet. The U.S. does not have foreign heads of state dictate to our joint chiefs. Israel does. The White House put out a press release about it and everything. This dynamic has been described as humiliating for Israel. On December 1st, the U.S. Secretary of State told Israel's war cabinet that it probably doesn't have months to wage war against Hamas in Gaza because of domestic and international pressure on Joe Biden's administration. Blinken said the quiet part out loud. The quiet part is that Joe Biden can stop the bloodshed in Gaza anytime he wants. When you have a client state that depends on the United States for protection and security, they have to listen to you. I realize that I'm simplifying a bit and that Benjamin Netanyahu has felt emboldened to disregard what U.S. presidents say from time to time. But when it comes to funding, where the rubber meets the road, Israel has to listen. If that $3 billion plus for the Israeli military came under threat, Netanyahu would listen. If Biden should threaten to move those carrier strike groups someplace else, Bibi would listen. There's no question about whether the U.S. has the power to make the call about ending this particular attack on Palestinian civilians. So we can only conclude that Joe Biden doesn't care how many Palestinians die. Close to 18,000 at this point, roughly 12,000 of them women and children. There are other priorities. War is expensive business. And cousin, business is a boomin'. Literally. If you have a problem with that, there's no place in the American two-party system for you to go. Both major parties give unquestioning support to everything Israel does. And if you hate what Joe Biden is doing, Israel likes Donald Trump even more. It sure would be nice if we had an alternative to the major parties willing to put the needs of human beings before corporate profits, but you won't find that in the American two-party system. Please give a like, follow, favorite, and check out my free Substack, where you can get a gazillion links supporting this post. Let's make them pay.